We're back again, darlings. We're going to revisit, well, something from February 21st that we talked about, but I've got some additional information for you that you're not going to want to miss. And when you start adding it up, well, remember, the numbers and the energy don't lie. So let's get started. So let's start with, and no, we're not getting into the big book of Bull, not yet, not yet. We started February 21st and we were talking about the Grand Junction of Colorado. Now that's coming up again. And I want you to know, and for those of you who don't know this, in January, well, actually in December and January, there was a 100% spike on Google Trends in Grand Junction, Colorado for Nancy Guthrie. Not so much Savannah, but Nancy. Someone was searching her address. Someone was searching her images, as in, what did she look like? As in personal information, as in, how tall was she? How much did she weigh? Those things in itself are disturbing. But this search went on from Google Trends located in Grand Junction, Colorado for 6 weeks prior to Nancy being abducted. I'm not going to call it a kidnapping. I do not believe that it is. I believe that she was taken for a purpose. And we're going to get into that because as time goes on, you're going to start seeing that there is a problem and there are connections. So bottom line is they were planning. Yes, there's more than one. They were planning. And who is and was located in Grand Junction, Colorado, and has connections to land of many, many, many acres. And if you saw this area, it can be very desolate, very hilly, very rocky, mountainous. Yeah. The person who had the island, J.E., let's just call him Epi. It's definitely not Gilligan's Island. So if you want to know the truth, I got a copy of a couple of the checks that went to this particular person. Now, it was not related to Nancy Guthrie, but this was related to some other subjects. But the point of it is, and if you look at your screen right now, I'm putting those checks up here. They were Western Union checks cashed by Wells Fargo Bank in Grand Junction, Colorado. And look at the name on those checks. Now you can say, but Zelda, this is from the past. Yeah, okay, it is. But there's some things here that I think you're going to be very interested in. And I'm just as a little refresher. We know that Savannah works for, we called it the Tomorrow Show, but I think we're going to talk about it today. That's with NBC. In 2019, she interviewed a group of women that were associated with the island that was not Gilligan's, but with Epi, whose name happens to be on those checks. And she was one of the first mainstream media reporters that did that. Now, this girl was named after the state of Virginia. For the purposes of this video, we're going to call her Ginny. Ginny, in this video, described her time there associated with this person and the female associate of Epi. You know what my favorite coffee is? Maxwell. Yeah, Maxwell House. Anyway, with that female associate, there were travel information. And I'm going to tell you something. In those files, that now can be accessed, there were some emails that showed Epi having interest in travel to Grand Junction, Colorado. So why is all this happening? Well, I'm going to tell you about it. You see, Ginny, while on the show, not only talked about Epi, but she talked about the former prince, Andy. She talked about that particular time, and then not long after, Ginny, dear Ginny, got her ticket to paradise. Now, they said it was self-inflicted. I just don't believe that. But now you see, my darlings, let's come, we're talking about the past, and it's so important to read from the past when we're looking at what has happened in the present so we know and understand what to do in the future. You always hear me saying, it's time now to focus on the present and put the past behind you. Not in this case, and not in crime cases. No, no. You've got to look behind to see what's ahead. So with all these searches coming out of Grand Junction and going into the future, that all was just this past December and January. And by the way, I am now, based on what I am seeing, I'm going to say 90% convinced that something happened with Nancy on January 31st and not February 1st. I am not convinced that even though those stains on the front entry were from Nancy, why were they, it looked like strategically placed. If people were walking around and if she was taken out of there, even if she was carried, someone would be stepping on those stains. Those stains would be prominently showing tracks of someone somehow, somewhere, and including herself. They came from the inside of the house going out. But why was her back door open? I submit to you, my darlings, a theory and not fact. I believe, in my opinion, that she was taken out the back door. It was found wide open. Think about this. You see that there's traffic at 2 and 2:30 in the morning, even if it wasn't belonging to this particular abduction case at that time. Why take a chance on carrying a woman with 2 masked people? Because it would take 2 people. We will talk about what is called dead weight. It would take 2 people. There's no way one man, unless he is Hercules. And that fellow that was on the ring camera, on the Nest camera, certainly didn't look like Hercules to me. Sure to you too. I'm certain not. So I submit to you, maybe someone was waiting by the back door or already in the house preparing, and they were able to slide her out to the side. Because what would have happened if somebody drove by and saw 2 masked people carrying out Nancy out of her house? The brakes would slam. Cell phone would turn to 911, and there would be a problem. So my darlings, getting back to this now. We have this whole timeline heading up to what's coming up now. Now, let's match a little timeline here, okay? Because just to give you some context, I'm going to start. I need another slice of paper, and see, we've been busy, haven't we? I need another slice of paper. So this other slice of paper, and where is this? Yeah, we worked on this too. And by the way, many of you have said, Dominic Evans is 48. Yes, he is. But at the time of the crime, he was 47 years old. And that makes a difference. It makes a difference how old people were at that time. Because you have to set a precedence, the foundation, Back to the Future. Now, this is what I want to say. Let's talk about Nanos for a minute. Yes, we have to. Nanos. He was in office a few years ago. But in 2016, there was a problem. And he was out of office and then came back into office. In 2000, he was out and then came back in, and he demanded a recount when he was put back in and he was reelected. So there's a gap of 8 years. A gap of 8 years. That's important. You see, Nanos had a little run-in with the FBI back in 2016. People didn't like it. And he had a rough time back in that time. But then all of a sudden he got back into office in 2024. Amazing. Keep that in mind. Let's go back. Let's go back to the future. So here we are. Grand Junction, Colorado. So Grand Junction, Colorado, Jenny was interviewed. She named the former prince, Andy, and she also named Epi. There were other victims there as well. But Jenny was the one who started naming names. That's important. And it was Savannah that brought this out. Now let's talk about another little situation just real quickly. Let's go back here to this slice of paper here. So now let's talk about what's happening currently. You see, we're going to put him, the ex-prince, was arrested just recently on his birthday. He is 66 years old. Happy birthday. Hope you love the bracelets. He's facing life in prison totally for some other things that he's done, including for Jenny and other little escapades like he had for that. That's one. Let's talk about the Clintocks. Oh, I think I spelled that wrong. That's not Clintocks. Okay. They just testified in congressional hearings over the past few days, asking about the Epi Island, asking about what they knew. So that had testimony. Let's talk about one more thing. Let's talk about Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey showed up in France within the past few days to receive an award that is sort of kind of similar to our Academy Awards. I don't know if you've seen him, but that's not Jim. Jim has been very outspoken over the past few years. And this started around the 2016 year. Now, did Nanos have anything to do with that? No. But what happened? In 2015, because Jim had become extremely outspoken about different actors, different escapades that they were doing, pointing toward many talk show hosts, many actors, many comedians, many musicians that were participating in extracurricular activities that were not only illegal, but a huge, big moral no-no. He didn't like it. But 2015 is significant because that's when they had broken up, his ex-girlfriend. He called her Dewdrop. That's pretty sweet. All of a sudden, she got her own ticket to paradise. Jim was devastated, even though they had broken up. But that sent a message to Jim. Jim, since then, has been extremely distraught and extremely vocal about these extracurricular activities of all these people. And then all of a sudden, Jim shows up not looking like himself. Another connection. I don't know, but let's back up a little bit more. Who is Savannah Guthrie married to? Oh, a fellow by the name of Michael Feldman. Michael Feldman has a particular group that he's lovingly called a scrubber. He goes through different, I'm going to say, celebrities, political people, well-known people, and scrubs the internet of extracurricular activities. Through his connection here with the Clintocks, there is an email that suggested, and no one has particular knowledge of, but suggested that Mr. Feldman meet up with Mr. Epi from the island. In order to do that, Michael Feldman would have to know a lot of dirt. He knows a lot of dirt on a lot of people. He knows a lot that shouldn't be known. He knows a lot on the Clintocks. He knows a lot on the ex-prince, Andy. He knows a lot on probably them. And especially in order, if he did take the case of Epi, he would definitely know a lot. In fact, I'm going to tell you who Michael Feldman is. You know who one of his clients was? Well, you know the Johnny Depp files. When he and Amber Heard were at it, well, Johnny Depp's lawyers hired Michael Feldman's group to do the best scrub job that he could. Well, must have done pretty good, because that and a few other little miracles, Johnny came out ahead. Now, where does Nanos fit in? How does this all come back to Nancy? Well, Michael is Nancy's son-in-law. And I'm going to say, maybe, and I'm submitting to you my theory, because I don't have this as fact. But I will tell you that the appropriate authorities have been contacted and do know this information. But you're certainly not going to see the mainstream media talking about this. It's called being well informed, my darlings. And that's what you've got to do. When you're looking at cases and you start looking at the surrounding people. You start looking at the past. You start looking. Now, a lot of these people were out of town and out of the country. But let's also talk about this with Savannah. Who is going to be affected the most by the loss of Nancy? Well, of course, it's very hurtful for family, and I'm not making light of that at all. Definitely not. There's been a lot of accusations. There's been a lot of things. But they still feel the loss of their mother and their grandmother. But I submit to you once more, and I believe that Nancy really went missing. I'm going to put it over here with, oh boy, yeah. January 31st, because there's a particular timeline there. You see, Savannah was supposed to be flying out on the 1st to Milano, Italy for the Olympics. She was packed and ready to go. Wouldn't she have already left on the 1st by the time that the sheriff's office would have gotten there in the afternoon? I don't know what time her flight was, but most likely they would have caught her either at the airport or on her way to the airport to make that international flight to the Olympics. So wouldn't have it made sense for this to have happened January 31st, plus in the evidence portal of Pima County, there is that, and I'm going to try to screenshot what I found. May not be good, may not, I don't know. But it says on January 31st that that's when adult protective agents went out, or this one person went out, stuck the card in the door. You would have thought that she would have seen the droplets if it were on Monday or Sunday, pardon me, when they said it was. Usually they're supposed to be walking around the house, and wouldn't she have seen that the back door was wide open and made a distressful call? But in that particular portal on Saturday, I submit to you, January 31st, that portal said 5 p.m. that Saturday, and then said 7 p.m. It had been changed. And then this dude here comes out and says, oh, when my deputy showed up Saturday night. Now, in all fairness, some people call the early morning hours night. But how? Because the story is they showed up in the early afternoon at Nancy's house on Sunday after a report said she wasn't at the church and her friends contacted family. Doesn't that, you see, the more I look into this, friends, and I hope I haven't lost you, you may need to just pause this and take a breath for a minute. Because what a tangled web we weave. But let's back up. Oh, there's more. There's more. And if you need to go get a drink, we'll wait. Okay, welcome back. So here you are, my darlings. Now we have this Michael Feldman. We have all this. Connections. And I'll tell you why I made that connection with Jim Carrey in just a minute. And I'll tell you where Nanos' connection comes in just a minute. So as we parse through this and we take a breath and we see what's happening with this abduction of Nancy Guthrie and the contacts of Michael Feldman and Grand Junction, Colorado. A little calling card, in my opinion, was sent on the night of February 10th of 2026 to the door of Nancy Guthrie's from Domino's. Hold on. Hold the phone. Domino's, you say? Well, we might need another slice. I'm pretty sure it was February, but I know you all will correct me. And that's okay. You see, something showed up at the house of Nancy Guthrie. And the police were there. How did that happen? What showed up? A pizza pie. Don't know if it had pepperoni. We're going to add a few slices. Pizza. They walked right up. Now, somebody's going to say, oh yeah, an influencer ordered it. For a pizza delivery from Domino's, I want you to go down the bunny trail just for a few seconds, and most of you will know this. that this word is a trigger. And it is connected to the Clintox. It is connected to the Epi Island and many more. That was a code word for anyone who wanted a sample from someone who was working in the traffic department. So why is that relevant here? Well, I'm going to tell you why I feel it's relevant. Because this code word is associated with so many of these people, the Clintox, the ex-prince, blah, blah, blah. It's like putting a horse's head in the bed from The Godfather. You see what I mean? It's sending that little calling card to say, see? Now you can say, oh, well, that was innocent enough. How would a Domino's pizza? That was an active crime investigation. Anybody who had maybe common sense would not have gone up there to the front door with all the cops and lights and everything else and walked right back out without being stopped. Domino's, to me, is also significant. Yes, and you can say, Zelda, my gosh, you're off the hook. I am. Because I've seen so much over my 51 years of reading, and especially over the past 3 decades of reading crime cases, to know that there are little warnings, little triggers here and there, and little signs of what you know has done this. Dominoes, well, are we seeing the dominoes start to fall? Isn't that something? I mean, they could have gotten Papa John's. They could have gotten Joe Schmo's pizza. Is probably better than all of these big brands to begin with. But Domino's. Gonna see the dominoes start to fall, and here is your little code and your little calling card of the pizza. Let's go back one more. Let's talk about him for a minute. Now, you're going to say, but Zelda, of all this stuff, this happened in 2019 where Jenny, Savannah was interviewing, she interviewed Jenny, and Jim Carrey 2015. I'm going to submit to you a theory that I have. Now, it's not based on fact. It's based on theory. And this theory, my darlings, is this. Nanos was out. Now, we know how he has bumfuddled some of this, in my opinion. Not some of this investigation. It's been this push and pull, and he does not like the 3-letter agency, and I can probably submit to you that they don't like him either, but they are keeping a personal emotions out of it. They're doing the best that they can to find Nancy. So why wouldn't they do this? Well, because Nanos didn't get back into office until 2024. And the perps, and I'm just going to say if, because I have to, if any of this came from the Epi people in Grand Junction, they would have to make sure that every element is put into place. Now, is he involved? I say no. So why get him? Because he's a fuddle. Because they know he's not going to cooperate with the FBI. They know that he's in this for him, every man for himself. He's in this for his little TV show. Possibly. They know that they can start setting things into motion in 2025 since he's been in office, and I'm sure they've watched him. And he is related to a certain political party that likes them. Look, I'm not getting political here. I'm just telling you the truth. It's the fact. So think about this. Why would you have a sheriff in office who would tear this apart in the beginning? I think the previous sheriff would have. But they know if they got this guy and they had to do a recount for this guy to get back in, they knew that if he got back in, that's the perfect storm. They're setting the foundation. Why? Well, because within 24 hours of the crime scene, he handed the house back to the Guthrie family within 24 hours after seeing that. And my darlings, he did not approach this not only as a kidnapping, but he called in the homicide squad. Why? What did he see? What is in the house? And they knew that he had this little push-pull thing with our 3-letter agency, that the focus would be on him and what he wants to do and can do and what his power, and he still hasn't relinquished a lot to the feds. And he should. Now, we still don't know if Annie, I heard that it was, and I still don't know if Annie and Tommaso's car has been returned to them. But here's the other thing, my darling. I'm going to tell you this. Someone had to know the ins and outs of Nancy's house, her where the Nest cameras were, the layout, the floor plan, the timings. Don't you think it's just a little odd that she goes on a little, I don't know, let's come over and play games? I'm sure that they did that often. But I'm sorry. If I take my mother home, who the sheriff said she couldn't walk more than 50 feet at a time, am I going to drop my mother off at almost 10 o'clock in the evening and let her go through the garage? And then there's not a single text that comes from the phone. I submit to you that someone was waiting. Why didn't Tommaso go in? Did he know? Or was someone with Tommaso, and why are they holding the card? You see, there's some things here that I don't know, and I'm asking. I'm not accusing. Getting back to this. So why do this? I'm going to tell you, not only do I think that it comes here, in my opinion, and I'm sure she did not do that. And from her interview, a lot of us knew by fact what had happened in 2019 with Jenny. And it's very unfortunate. I'm sure she felt terrible when Jenny lost her life, but I'm sure she also knew that it was associated in some way or another. But I'm going to say, let's go one step further. Could this be a signal to him? Because he knows a lot, and he could give state's evidence against this, and against this. Is this a warning? Is this a warning shot? I'm asking you to just think about this. Now, once again, like I said, the appropriate authorities have been contacted. And the Grand Junction Sheriff, as of February 11th, has been putting out BOLO, which is be on the lookout, for particular suspicious activity as far as going through some of this, I think they mentioned Route 50. That's pretty desolate. And some of you in the comments have written, yeah, I know that area. Yeah, that's just really something. It's kind of scary through there. And yeah. Listen, Grand Junction is a beautiful town. It's nothing against them. But they've been on the radar for activity coming in and out that is associated to Epi. So maybe this isn't about Savannah, and maybe it is. But maybe more, it is based on her husband, who knows too much. Am I off? Let me know in the comments. You may have to watch this again and again. And like I said, this is just theory. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. Whatever I have here, I'll show you that are the facts. And you know what are the facts. And I'm not guessing. But it's my opinion. This is much bigger. And if Agent Oobligada was sitting in front of me, I would be holding on to his wrist and saying, look, pal, you gotta do something about, you gotta look into this. You've gotta look into what has happened and what's going on. Because, my darlings, I also have another theory about Charlie Kirk, and we're going to talk about that too one day. And I'm also going to talk to you. I know, Zelda, are you cracking up? No, I just do research. But I'm also going to talk to you someday about Nikola Tesla, the pyramids, and Nancy Guthrie. I'll make the connection with all, and you'll see what it is. This has gone on longer than what it should. It could take more than 6 months. I'm going to be here. I know you're going to be here too. Let's find Nancy. And please, do me a favor. Think about this. Think about it. I'm going to link the video about Grand Junction here at the end. You might want to take a watch and see exactly what you think. I'll see you soon.